For the past few years, we've seen a lot of cinematic universes come to fruition, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the DC Cinematic Universe, and the Monsterverse. While these film series have enjoyed moderate success at the box office and with the audience and critics, some have failed so miserably that they almost made their studios bankrupt. Here are 10 cinematic universes that failed. Back in 2014, Sony bought a project called Hood. It was supposed to be a film that would later spawn a number of sequels and an Avengers-like team-up between Robin Hood and his merry men. With no news of it becoming a thing since 2014, and the failure of the latest Robin Hood film with Taron Egerton, it's unlikely that we'll see a cinematic universe consisting of Robin Hood and his merry men on the big screen. Warner Bros. Had multiple attempts at cashing in on The Legend of King Arthur, a remake of the film Excalibur directed by Bryan Singer, and a film called Arthur and Lancelot. However, those projects were scrapped in a fear of a box office disaster. The next attempt was an Arthurian cinematic universe which would have 6 films, following different characters of Arthurian legend before the big team-up film that would have concluded the series. Warner Bros. Hired Guy Ritchie to make the King Arthur film, King Arthur: Legend of the Sword, starring Charlie Hunnam as King Arthur. It was released in 2017 and it underperformed at the box office, and it cost Warner Bros. Over $150 million. Despite the failed attempts at continuing the Terminator franchise with Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation, Paramount and Skydance had high hopes for this reboot of the series. Terminator Genisys would have evolved into a film trilogy with a tie-in TV series, but the film turned out to be horrible and the box office numbers in China were disappointing. Regardless of that, Skydance tried to push the development forward, but nothing really came out of it. In January 2016, Paramount removed the sequels from their film schedule. Hopefully, the upcoming Terminator Dark Fate will save the franchise once and for all. The Ghostbusters 2016 reboot was dead on arrival as soon as the first trailer was released, but did you know that Sony was developing a cinematic universe out of Ghostbusters? In March 2015, the production company Ghost Corps Inc. was formed by Sony Pictures to oversee the future of the franchise. Back then, they had 2 projects in mind. One was a male-oriented Ghostbusters that will follow the 2016 remake, and the other was a tie-in animated series called Ghostbusters Ectoforce. Both projects were scrapped, but there is still hope with a Ghostbusters sequel coming out next year, directed by Ivan Reitman's son, Jason Reitman. The Amazing Spider-Man performed well at the box office, and Sony greenlit multiple sequels and spin-offs: The Amazing Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 4, a Venom film, a tie-in animated film, and a Sinister Six spin-off film. The Sony Leaks revealed early talks of having The Amazing Spider-Man 3 as an animated film, with a trend-hopping, EDM-listening vegan Spider-Man with his own private Snapchat, a 2-parter called The Amazing Spider-Man Sinister Six, Emma Stone as Carnage, a female-led spin-off, and The Amazing Spider-Man vs. Spider-Man, with the Raimi Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man facing off. Sony hoped that these films would earn them billions of dollars, but the second film made them think twice. The Sony Leaks also revealed a surprising crossover between the new Men in Black and Jump Street franchises. It was rumored to be part of a shared universe, including the spin-off MIB International, which came out this year. James Baldwin signed on to direct, and it was expected to have both Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill reprising the roles. With the lack of news and updates surrounding it, the chances of MIB 23 being produced were slim. In early 2019, however, Phil Lord talked about Jump Street sequels in an interview and said that MIB 23 will probably be produced right after 24 Jump Street. 24 Jump Street is a female-led sequel starring Zendaya and Tiffany Haddish. Before the cinematic universe craze, Fox tried to make a series called X-Men Origins, with standalone films following different characters of the X-Men franchise. Only one was released, X-Men Origins Wolverine, and the reception of the film was mixed, and was widely criticized for butchering the character of Deadpool. Fox was still optimistic about the series, and there were several films in the works: X-Men Origins Magneto, X-Men Origins Gambit, and X-Men Origins Deadpool. Later, these films were scrapped in favor of X-Men First Class. X-Men First Class was a success, and so were the sequels, X-Men Days of Future Past and X-Men Apocalypse. Spin-off films like The Wolverine and Deadpool became successful film series of their own. Fox's other films in mind, like the Fantastic Four trilogy, Gambit, X-Force, The New Mutants, and Multiple Man and Kitty Pryde, were in trouble. The Fantastic Four reboot failed to captivate audience. Gambit was in development hell, New Mutants has been pushed back multiple times despite the film being finished, and the Disney-Fox merger heavily affected the Fox cinematic universe. Recently, the fourth film of the major X-Men reboot series, X-Men Dark Phoenix, became the biggest box office disaster of 2019, and this means that Disney will indefinitely reboot the franchise. The initial plan for the DCEU is far different from the DCEU we have right now. The original plan for the DCEU was to have a Flash film released in 2018, a two-parter Justice League film in 2017 and in 2019, which was reduced to just one film, and a Cyborg and Green Lantern film both in 2020. Now, the things are different. There is a sequel for Suicide Squad coming out in 2021, there is a standalone Joker film coming out later this year, there is a spin-off for Harley Quinn coming out next year, a Wonder Woman sequel, an Aquaman sequel, and a reboot of Batman with Robert Pattinson as Batman. There are rumors that Ezra Miller will be replaced by Lucas Till in a future Flash film, which has no release date as of now. The Green Lantern and Cyborg films are still in development hell, and it is believed that the new films are no longer connected to each other. The 2017 reboot of Power Rangers was intended to spawn a massive franchise, but it only made a little over its budget. The second film was supposed to introduce the Green Ranger Tommy Oliver, who we all know is a major character in the Power Rangers series. In a recent interview, actor Dacre Montgomery, who played the Red Ranger, said that the Power Rangers was being rebooted with a new cast, so there is still hope that we might see a new Power Rangers cinematic universe on the big screen. One of the first ever film series that technically were a cinematic universe before it was all the rage was the Universal Monsters franchise. Dracula, the Frankenstein monster, and the Mummy are all horror icons that we all know and love. Even though they were becoming more and more irrelevant due to the popularity of slasher icons like Freddy, Michael Myers, and Jason, there was still a demand for Universal Monsters to collide in one big film. This almost happened when Universal invested big money into a project known as the Dark Universe. There were going to be films focused on the Universal monsters, starting with Dracula Untold and The Mummy. While Dracula Untold was a success, The Mummy didn't perform as expected. Many things were changed from the original plot. Ashur Banipal was replaced by Amenet, and the writers added scenes that will set up future films. Additional reboots were in development as well, including The Wolfman, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Phantom of the Opera, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Russell Crowe was cast as Dr. Henry Jekyll, Johnny Depp was cast as the Invisible Man, Javier Bardem was cast as the Frankenstein monster, and they were set to appear in several films in the cinematic universe. Even Luke Evans was supposed to reprise his role as Dracula. These plans were, however, squashed by the release of 2017's The Mummy. The Invisible Man is set to be released in 2020 without Johnny Depp, and The Bride of Frankenstein is still in development as of 2019. Talk about wasting your money.